everybody.
From Salt Lake City, Utah,
It's Thank God I'm Atheist.
the podcast.
I'm Frank.
And I am Mark, who has permanently usurped Dan, sitting in for Dan.
Coming up today, we're going to be talking about this horrid group that's coming to Utah.
A spooky Halloween
around
subject.
Halloween time. What is it called? The Christian Family?
The
something?
World Congress of Families.
Yeah, and they're nasty folk.
They're worse than the Headless Horseman.
Ooh, that's terrifying.
Or they're like 100 Draculas.
But there's more than that of them, right?
Oh, there's 10,000 Draculas,
And
yeah.
they're coming and they're descending on Salt Lake.
Your Frankensteins, your mummies, just be ready, Salt Lake.
God, yeah. So we'll be talking about that. Yeah.
Hi,
Well,
Frank.
hi, Mark.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you back. Second
you.
week in a row.
Yeah.
Actually, there's going to be a third one too, right?
I think so, yeah.
As long as it works out with your schedule.
Yeah, if you'll have me back.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Sweet.
Dan, of course, is in the lap of luxury in the south of France at the moment.
Yeah.
Just doing what Dan does.
He's in that European hellscape.
He can't go more than a few months without taking a trip somewhere. So,
Scumbag.
Anyway, it is great to have you here, Mark.
Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to start with, or you want me to get going?
You go first.
Me go first?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think it's time that I don't know if you love this story as much as I do, but the Kim Davis phenomenon
Go away.
it keeps going on.
God, go away.
This thing's got some serious legs.
She's got some legs.
Yeah, probably very stumpy.
Stout.
Stuff.
She's got a good center of gravity. It's hard to knock her out of the press.
Anyway, she got honored this week with a visit from the Pope.
I know. Come on.
Which is just mind-boggling to me because he just walked straight into an issue
I know.
that is going to completely alienate so many people in this country who like started to feel really positive about him. It's absurd to me.
It was such a misstep. Clear. Like, doesn't he have help? Aren't there vice popes or
Vice Pope?
Pope runner-up, that can prevent him from making such a stupid...
Yeah, I know. You would think so.
It's kind of like if extraterrestrials contacted Earth and were like, oh my God, this is the moment. And they're like, oh yeah, we actually just want to talk to Gilligan.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Just like clown.
What?
Yeah. Initially, the Vatican would neither confirm nor deny that it actually happened, which everybody who pays attention to the Vatican was like, well, that's just them saying that it happened, but they're
Right.
not going to talk about it. And then they eventually just said, yeah, it happened.
Amazing.
And so they sat down, the Pope, or the Holy Father, as I should call him, he presented Kim and her husband with rosaries that he had blessed. They're keeping the photos private, at least at the moment. They're all in the possession of the Vatican. We'll see if they actually are willing to release them at any
Can't wait
point.
to see what her husband's wearing to meet the Pope.
He put on his best hunting hat.
His best coveralls, and he brought his fancy scattergun.
And then, of course, he asked her to pray for him because he needs it. That was his whole line this entire time.
He always does that.
Yeah.
I think he thinks it's humble.
It's starting to rub me the wrong way.
Well, it's kind of like he's saying this to all these poor people and handicapped and deformed people. And it's like, dude,
Yeah.
you're kind of set.
Yeah.
You live in a big house.
Yeah.
And, you travel.
Yeah.
Fuck praying for you.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and along the same lines, I read an article about him at the prison that he went to go visit. And he met with like 3 or 4 of the inmates, and they're talking, and he's like, he says, that we're all sinners, right?
Yeah.
And then he ad-libs for a minute. He goes off script, and he says, and, I of course, am the worst of them. He's saying this to people who are incarcerated.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, you don't have to, like, do this self-deprecating thing?
Yeah, is that like, it's kind of a humble brag kind of thing? Like, it's bullshit.
Yeah. Hello.
And he also...
Although he probably is a major league center. Who knows? But
for sure. But he also said that he said that he's also a captive to the prisoners. And that's no, dude, you're getting on a fancy plane and flying back to Rome.
Yeah.
These guys are doing 20 to life in the Stone Lonely. You're not a captive. Come on.
Just a captive of a lifetime of achievement and being respected amongst his peers.
Yeah. And fancy dress.
Yeah. And fancy dress. Let's see. And then she had received another honor this week, which was by
the Mayonnaise Council.
She makes a good mayonnaise.
She makes it.
She just makes a little known fact about her.
And she can wipe it out.
Just attacks it with everything.
So
French fries.
So mean.
Oh, was that a fat joke?
That was a fat joke. Well, it was kind of.
I just was thinking it was like some weird foodie joke.
Yeah,
she makes her own mayonnaise.
It was a fat regional joke. Sorry, Kentucky.
All right. Well, she. There was a prominent Christian organization by the name of Values Voter Summit. That's not the organization. That was the event. The Values Voter Summit in Washington, D.C. There's been speeches by conservatives like Donald Trump and Ted Cruz and Ben Carson. But at this event during the summit, Kim Davis shows up and they give her this recognition, this award, and they also compare her to Abraham Lincoln, Martin Luther King, and Rosa Parks.
Like all three? Like if all three, like three men and a baby, or how?
Yeah, form of Kim Davis.
Well, first of all, Abraham Lincoln was much taller.
They just merge into one, right?
So they literally said that she was like all three of those people.
Yeah, I mean, well, she was compared to him,
Who was it that made the first person to make this comparison? It's super obvious. Is no, babe, you're not Rosa Parks, you're the bus driver.
Ooh.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's been kind of a meme, and it's totally true. Yeah. Rosa Parks committed civil disobedience to expand the franchise of freedom and people being treated with respect.
Exactly.
Kim Davis is civil disobeying in order to prevent people from enjoying their freedoms.
Right.
So
not a Gandhi figure?
Lincoln much?
What about Harvey Milk? Could we compare, there should be this whole list of I think it's completely outrageous, completely inappropriate.
Well, she's been compared to Jesus, I'm sure, but she's obviously the comparison is George Wallace and every kind of horrible Jim Crow era asshole that yeah. But go for it.
But amazing that they can pick from that era the side that was expanding rights.
Yeah, they threw a dart and they missed by a mile.
Yeah. And the other thing here that's being lost on people is that civil disobedience, people are like the Pope supposedly is sort of outraged, right? That she, is, or I don't know if outraged is the right word, but his whole thing is, well, she shouldn't be being punished for standing up for what she believes. And it's no, if you're breaking the law, that's what civil disobedience is. It's getting a mass of people to make examples of themselves and be punished and get the public outraged.
Right.
Through, being imprisoned and facing the punishment for the crime that they're
and part of it is showing how unjust that is.
Crime that they're committing. Yeah, exactly.
The just in Salt Lake when the Capitol 13 went up there to kind of force the legislature to vote on this what was it, non-discrimination bill,
right?
And the legislature didn't want to because the Supreme Court case. Long story short, but all these people went up there knowing they were going to get arrested.
Right. They
didn't go up there and say, we're going to block the door to the governor's office, and we really don't want to be inconvenienced.
Right.
So you shouldn't arrest us because that's wrong. No, it's Rosa Parks knew she was going to get arrested.
Exactly.
Dr. King knew he was going to get a truncheon in the head.
Right.
every time he walked into some shithole town.
Right.
And that's the deal with civil disobedience.
Right.
You don't say, yeah, I want to break the law and I've got a lunch appointment, so see ya. Right?
Right. But she's outraged about the prison time. And then her supporters are outraged that she was imprisoned in the first time.
Right.
Not imprisoned, but put in jail for a few days.
Right.
You know, and that's just ludicrous.
Ludicrous.
I mean, the ways in which they are missing the point
is all of them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's all of them.
Yeah, it's remarkable.
And it's kind of sad, you know. And really,
I'm not sad about it.
What's sad is just how stupid the whole thing is and that she's getting any attention. But really, what is a county clerk? They file. Mm-hmm. They write down something and they file it in a cabinet.
Right. Right.
That's it. So get over yourself, Kim Davis.
Please. For the sake of for the sake of foreheads everywhere.
What was Stephen Colbert called her a forehead magnate? I think she's just she's got that classic lunch lady vibe going on. Anyway. So I thought I'd just kind of divulge into something stupid for a minute since
Please.
we're off the heady topic of Kim Davis. So there is
no puns intended.
There is a real person. Mostly the only reason I want to talk about this story is because this real person's name is Theodore Shubat.
All right. Keep
just
going.
spelled just like it sounds. Shubat, not hyphenated.
Like SHOEBAT?
Shubat.
Wow.
Yeah, use that in a sentence and you win the spelling bee. So
I played a new game.
So I have
with a Shubat.
In my notes I have Theodore Shubat, crazy person.
You take the bat off your foot and then
or you use it to beat your shoe. I don't know.
Oh, there you go.
So Theodore Shubat, crazy person, is the son of Walid Shubat, the elder crazy person. So both of these guys are somehow, there's this massive right-wing blogosphere of just kooks, right? Mm-hmm. And these guys are kind of on the right outer edge of that. They write for this horrible website called Barbed Wire, which is this guy named Matt Barber is this shrieking right-wing guy, lunatic that's always throwing the every kind of conspiracy out there. Okay. Obama birth certificate. That's like the milder edge.
Sure. Okay.
So Walid Shubat, his spawn, Theodore of the, I don't know, Shubats, has been he's a columnist on this website called Barbed Wire for Matt Barber.
Okay.
Has been writing a lot of columns that include things like Theodore Shubat calls for the global inquisition to execute homosexuals and throw off their sodomite homo sharia law imposed by sodomite bastards and faggots. That's a quote. I'm not paraphrasing, just so everybody knows. He was very butthurt when Obama nominated our friend Eric Fanning that we talked about last week to be the Secretary of the Army, because he's destroying the military and pleasing Satan by appointing fags. Theo the Shubat has demanded that gays, feminists, Muslims, and atheists must all be executed. That all gay-friendly Christians must be executed.
Shut up.
Yes. He wants to burn the fag flag, which is pretty tame given his other opinions.
Burn away, man.
So this started getting some attention, his calls for jihad. And Matt Barber, who is one of those right-wing guys that would never back down, never apologize, has suddenly unhappened the family Shubat from his website. So there's no reference. They're just gone.
What?
Yeah. So
wow.
So, pray for them. I hope they're all right. Theodore of Shubat.
Just wandering around on the internet with no...
they don't have a home right now. So Theodore Shubat, who's called for death to everyone who differs from him, was just featured in apparently a very loving right-wing documentary called Light Winds with fat dope Mike Huckabee and that freedom-loving, get the government out of my life hero, Rand I Got Mine Paul. So So anyway, I just thought I'd bring up the shoe bats and their call for gays, feminists, Muslims, atheists, gay-friendly Christians, et cetera, to be killed. So if you're in one of those groups, lock your doors. The shoe bats are at large.
When the shoe bats come to town.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Yeah. Thank you. I had no clue.
Life is better now that you know about the shoe bats.
I tend to not delve too far into that side of the internet. I let it be curated for me. like I will not go searching for these lunatics. So thank you.
The times I've peaked, I let it be curated for me too by someone who's got a stronger stomach.
Yeah.
But the times I have peaked beyond the veil there, I have definitely needed a Silkwood shower.
Oh my goodness.
All right, what you got, Frank?
Well, do I go with the hypocrite or I think I'm going to say with the hypocrite.
Oh, good.
All right. So down in New Zealand, they have just recently rejected an application by the Jedi Society, and that's Jedi as in Star Wars, Society, to be recognized as a legitimate charitable group.
Oh, that is some fucking bullshit right there.
What? Well, it sounds like basically they're trying to be recognized as a religious group. And I'm not quite... The way that the New Zealand media is talking about it is in New Zealandese.
Yeah, so you have to read it like that.
So I'm having kind of a hard time with a lot of these details. But it's clear that they're trying to be a religious organization, and they because of this decision by the Department of Internal Affairs, they are not going to be eligible for any kind of tax-exempt charitable status, and as such, they're also not even counting Jedis in the census, which is really rude.
Not cool.
Because they are willing, for whatever reason, to count Scientologists. And I mean, the Jedis, they can't.
At least Star Wars is real.
Yeah,
right.
And harmless.
Mostly.
Mostly harmless. Okay, these guys are out being big time nerds, but nonetheless, that's all they want to do is get together and believe in the Force and the light side of the Force, not the dark side, right? These are the good guys.
Oh,
and
man.
Apparently, even though the census was not asking for New Zealanders to whether or not they were Jedi, over 19,000 Kiwis declared themselves adherents of the Jedi religion. While
that's like half of New Zealand.
I know. While 300 something, there's 300 Scientologists in the whole country.
300 period.
But they're counted. That'll actually end up in the report.
They counted
the Jedis, but they're not going to actually figure out the percentage and
not cool.
Plug it into.
Maybe the problem is that they kind of put their heads together in the New Zealand, the house where the government meets, the little
parliament.
Yeah, I think it's probably an apartment like the size of this one, but wherever they meet out by the sheep field, they probably decided it was too ridiculous to have Kiwi Jedis because they'd stand like, "Hi, Leek, I'm your father, right? Yeah. You're either with me or you're against me, yeah? Right? Yeah?
That's pretty good.
I think that's probably a good reason.
Yeah. It was the absurdity of just...
ridiculous. Nobody's going to take your lightsaber seriously when you're like, hello.
You're seriously channeling... have you spent time with a lot of folks from New Zealand?
I've known a couple Kiwis, but I've never been.
Oh, okay.
And it's because I know a couple Kiwis, so... No.
It looks like an amazing
I'm kidding,
place.
Vicky.
No, and we actually have a number of listeners in New Zealand. We were invited out for a thing that we couldn't make it to.
Oh, really?
To New Zealand. I mean, Dan and I were seriously
that's a slog.
Yeah.
That's a hike.
But we really, really thought.
Yeah, I'd love to check it out sometime.
So,
if they straighten out their Jedi shit, I'll go for sure.
All right, what have you got?
So let's see, where do we want to go next? I want to end on a strong note, so we'll just do this funny thing for a second.
Okay.
So from our friends at the Friendly Atheist, there is a Christian preacher who claims he has raised, and first of all, he doesn't look like a Christian preacher. He looks like a guy that should be on the edge of a swamp playing. What's the upside down wash tub with the broomstick and the string?
Okay.
Yeah, he should. That's what he should be doing. That should be his vocation.
Okay.
So this guy Todd Bentley, who has previously been YouTubed saying that kicking women in the face is a good way to heal them, claims he has resurrected. I almost said wrecked. Almost has resurrected 35 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
Really?
35 people. And so
wow.
I know, right? This guy's good.
Keep this guy around.
Jesus just brought back Lazarus, I think.
Yeah, that
was it.
Yeah. That we know of.
Jesus was a one-trick pony. That and the fishes. So I'm quoting him here. I actually have a, air quotes, raising the dead tent that I've used for 10 years in Africa. And sorry, I can't do the accent, guys. I can do Kiwi, but not this fucking dullard's accent. I've used for 10 years in Africa. I actually put a sign on my tent called Dead Raising Tent.
Oh,
and people go, and who wouldn't look inside there? And people go, why do you have a tent called a Dead Raising Tent? I go, well, if I'm preaching in a city and anybody dies, I ask them to bring them to the meeting. We put them in the tent and we pray over them. And if nothing happens, we bury them.
Jesus Christ.
Good call. I said, give me 2 days. I mean, if they're fresh, the closer they are to freshly dead, the easier they are to be resurrected, which I think Billy Crystal brought that up in The Princess Bride, right? It's mostly dead.
Right, yeah.
The easier they are to resurrect. The more days they get in, there, once you get past the 4-day mark, we really do pray for the dead to be raised. Literally, 2 literallys. Whenever we have the opportunity, we at least go for it. If nothing happens, again, we bury them. We've prayed for probably 1,000 resurrections, literally, and we've had 35 resurrections of the dead. Testimonies of people raised from the dead. Some of them I've seen right before my eyes.
Wow. Okay.
I guess it only works in Africa, where there aren't a lot of news cameras or something to witness this miracle.
Maybe.
Yeah. So anyway.
Or medical examiners to declare people dead first.
I suspect this guy might literally be lying. Or crazy.
Right.
Or he just comes upon a lot of people sleeping and wakes them up.
Boo.
Yeah.
There's another one.
It lives. All right. Then we've wasted too much time on this dope.
Okay. All right. Well, I promised a story about a hypocrite.
Yes.
I'm
right here.
I've got one.
I'm right here.
Okay.
I'm in the room, okay?
Well, plug your ears then.
Okay.
So, Indiana.
Oh, yeah.
And their House leader.
Yes.
In their legislature. Member of the GOP, right? The grand old party.
Not a big surprise in Indiana.
He's had to resign his post after a sexually explicit video of him cheating on his wife. So, in the act of cheating on his wife, he had video
on flagrant delicto.
That's the word. Yeah,
yes.
That's it.
Look it up.
He texted the video to everyone on his contact list in his phone.
No.
Yeah.
Why did he do that?
Because
he doesn't know how phones
work.
Oh my God.
Apparently. But after he realized the video went out,
oh no,
he sent out another text with an explanation. He claimed that, quote, his phone was stolen in Canada and out of my control for about 24 hours. I have just been able to reactivate it under my control. Please disregard any messages you received recently. I am truly sorry for anything offensive you may have received.
That is the most think of the thinking behind that text. That is the most panic-stricken. Let's talk about aliens. I think
it was in Canada. Like why?
People. First of all, Canadians don't steal phones.
No.
They're Canadians. They let you borrow their phones.
Yeah. So apparently, I would believe that it was maybe maybe out of his control for a minute, right? Well, I mean, why not?
Because his hands were slippery.
I mean, then maybe the phone wasn't, in his presence.
So
somebody picked it? I mean, who knows? Because I don't know how stupid you can be. First of all, let's go through the steps here.
Let's plumb the depths of stupid.
He decided to videotape himself.
Yeah.
Cheating on his wife.
Yeah.
Having sex with another woman.
Yes.
And put it on his phone. Right.
$5 says it's his government issued.
Oh, like his BlackBerry?
Yeah, like it's his government. It's got to be. Because he's not going to use that kind of, space on his private phone.
No. Well, his wife might see it. It might automatically get uploaded to their iCloud.
I will. I will.
It's just, there it is.
I will eat everything on this desk if it's not his government phone.
They're just scrolling through. That's what happened. This is what happened. His wife's at home.
Yeah.
The video automatically uploaded to iCloud. Right.
Right.
She's scrolling through on the
Wait,
Apple
does that
TV.
happen? We have to pause for a second. I have to go.
Yes, of course it happens. She's scrolling through on the Apple TV. It's like, I want to look at the pictures of the kids, right, from last week.
And hopefully his mother-in-law was sitting there.
There's the video.
Have you seen the video?
I haven't seen the video.
So, but the reason I ask is it's clearly him, right? There's no question. It's not some Canadian who stole his phone, made a banging sex tape, and then returned it to him.
I don't know this is a banging sex tape. It doesn't say that.
It's Republican sex, so it's either just the most white bread or the most frightening. There's
no in between.
There's no in between.
So this article actually or whoever posted this had a really funny line about his Canadian girlfriend stole my phone defense, which I thought was pretty funny. It doesn't seem to really convince anyone. And
by the way, prostitute and girlfriend are not the same thing.
Yeah,
guys.
And here, let's get to the hypocrite part of this. Okay. Because we've just been having fun that there's some legislator who cheated on his wife and did it in a poor way.
And that he's a Republican is a little soupçon of wonderfulness.
No. This guy has been on a crusade to protect the integrity of the institution of marriage. According to his campaign website, he claimed that the family has always been the frontier of our strength, or the foundation of our strength of community. And that, quote, in these times of turmoil, the rest of the country could learn something from our example.
Well, a lot of the rest of the country got his example texted to them.
Yeah, it's the... Did we get the name of the guy? Did I ever say? Judd McMillan. We need to make sure his name is out there. Judd McMillan. Yeah, it's the Judd technique. The Judd.
You got the
Judd move. You got Judded.
I was going to try to come up with a pithier comment, but that is so totally not in any way surprising or ironic.
And here's his photo.
Oh no! Don't show me his picture. Holy shit!
Who would cheat with him?
He looks like a jack-o'-lantern on crack. Doesn't he? Those eyes have not blinked in 20 years.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Wow. I'm so glad you're showing me just that much of him, too.
Wow. And not anyway. Yeah, so that's always good stuff.
Wow. So now, how soon does he become governor or the next Republican candidate?
I mean, he has resigned.
What?
Yeah.
Wow, Republicans never resign.
He's resigned from office, I believe, not just his post. I might be wrong about that.
Wow.
I don't think the article is really all that clear on that one. But I'm assuming that he was forced out of office.
And it's probably not one of those moments where he says, I'm going to go spend more time with my family because...
His family isn't going to be spending time with.
Because they don't live where you live at the Howard Johnsons. Poor dummy.
Yeah.
Well, I have a nice fun moment to end on, which just made me so happy. So, who doesn't love America's favorite apple fritter, Donald Trump? So we're being really cruel with personal attacks today, but I'm kind of in a mood. So Donald Trump has been, people seem to like him, and it's a mystery to me, but he's getting down into the nitty gritty. So it's gone from, I think, the honeymoon phase of I'm rich, Right. I make tacky buildings. I'm on the TV. Everybody loves me.
Right.
Well, now I think it's gotten to this much more serious stage where it's like, okay, dude, now you got to do the retail politics. Now you actually have to meet the hayshakers and the rubes that are kind of excited about you.
Yeah.
And I don't think he likes it. I don't think he's used. I don't think he ever talks to people that are under a certain income bracket or can't or aren't making his beef Wellington for him. So a bunch of I imagine him eating like a big bloody dough covered. Don't you think that's his cuisine?
Yeah. I've never pictured him eating before. That's a horrible.
If you haven't, you should Google Trump steaks when he was on the cover of this box of steaks he was selling.
What?
You'll never eat meat again. It's so grotesque. People look that up and don't hate me when you. So
it's the greatest tool Pete has ever had.
Yeah, it's horrendous. So he I don't know if he invited these people or they just showed up. Watching the video, I get the feeling they just kind of showed up in his office one morning. So he's standing at the conference table in his tacky ass, horrible gold tower. And there are all these evangelicals around him, but they're kind of televangelists. They're famous ones, right? So there's like 40 of them in the room. They've got him totally surrounded, and they're all touching him. And he's kind of got his crotch jammed against the conference table in an effort to keep anybody from getting in front of him. So at least he's got some space to breathe. And he's clutching. He has, he's been waving around this family Bible, like his mom gave him a Bible.
Okay.
Before he sold her for her bear, sold her skeleton to a science lab or something. So he's clinging to this Bible with, it looks like a man who's fallen off a ship and is clinging to a beach ball in a hurricane. Like he's holding on to this thing, just going, and they're praying for him, and they're all like raising their hands like people like evangelicals do. And I can tell, like, this might be the moment that Donald Trump decides, fuck it, I'm not doing this. Like, I'm out.
Just can't handle.
I'm out of the race, because this is what it's going to be from here on out.
Yeah.
Is eating corn dogs at the fair and, shucking corn and making pancakes and kissing babies. And I just don't think he has any capacity for that. And what I loved about this picture is this is the first time that I think I have anything in common with Donald Trump. Because I would
have the same reaction.
I would have the same horror on my hideous face that he has if I was surrounded by people like that. And the best part is, so he kind of deals with this evangelical thing. And you're looking at that Bible. If he were to open it, it would be like the first time you open a textbook and there's that kind of crack at the spine. It's never been opened. So, there's this amazing moment at the end where the Christians finish and you can tell he's like, okay, I'm good. And there's a rabbi who's, I guess, there's evangelical level rabbis, right? Like kind of celebrity rabbis or whatever.
Okay.
Because we're a Judeo-Christian country. So he thinks it's over, and this rabbi just reaches around him and grabs his face. Like, he doesn't see it coming. He just grabs like this, like in Alien, that thing that goes...
Was this like a performance troupe? I mean, like, was this really for real?
And you can tell it scares the shit out of him. And he kind of reaches for the hand to pull it away, and the rabbi starts going off on this Hebrew prayer, and Trump, you can tell he's just like, oh my God, kill me now. And it's beautiful. If you guys just Google Donald Trump pastor's prayer horror or something, you'll find it, and it's really a beautiful moment. So I think after that we won't be seeing him in the next debate.
He just gives up.
He should give up.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm actually looking up the picture right now because
it's awesome.
Oh, okay.
See, you could tell he ran to that conference table to try to get away from them, and it blocked his path.
Oh my God. All right, that's amazing.
There's like 40 of them. It's awesome.
Okay. Well, if you would like to chime in, dear listener, on anything that you've heard today thus far, you may do so by emailing us. The email address is podcast@thankgodimatheist.com, or you can also leave us a voicemail. The number is 801, not 801,
You've given away our location.
It's 424-666-8442. Of course, we are also on Facebook, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. And we also have the TGIA Members Only Lounge, which you can search for on Facebook and request to join it. It does take a minute or two or a month to get in. Dan does make sure that he's only letting in people who know who we are, basically, as a podcast, so that the community stays focused,
troll free,
and that your anonymity can be protected better.
So if you're
that kind of stuff.
If you're in a spot where you kind of don't want everybody to know where you're at in your journey.
Anyway, TGIA Members Only Lounge. So go ahead and do that. We're going to take a quick break. This is Pat Robertson, and he's pissed off about the gays again.
Listen, ladies and gentlemen, it was the gays said, look, we want rights. We want to be recognized. We want to be allowed to have unions, and now we want to be allowed to have marriage. And the Supreme Court said, okay, you can have marriage. All right, cool. They don't want to stop there. What they want to do is persecute anybody who disagrees with them. They want those people bankrupted. They want those people put in jail. Is that what the left wants? The answer is absolutely. It is vindictive now. We're not talking about having rights from the poor, oppressed gays. We're talking about taking away the freedoms of everybody who disagrees with them. Now, do we want that in America? And don't you think it's time people stand up and say, listen, we've got to make a stand for these people, and yet they're not. They're being pilloried in the press. They're being laughed at in the press because the press is in league with the gay rights people, and they somehow think this is a civil rights issue. They better be careful what they're doing because they're taking away the rights of everybody.
That's all I've ever wanted in life.
I just don't want anybody but you and me, Frank, to have rights.
Anyway.
What does that world even look? I'm like, I've always said that the fundamentalist mindset and the super conservative mindset is basically the inability to think a thought all the way to the end. Just go to the end of that.
Yeah.
What does that world look like? How is that enforced?
Yeah.
How is, like, what are we, if you include, lesbians, transgender people, and college girls experimenting, and every high school kid now, like, what are we, 10, 12% max of the population? Yeah, we're going to take everybody else's rights, and I just don't fucking.
No, it's the gay agenda all over again.
Poor dumb Pat.
Yeah. All right. Well, anywho, we got some people to thank because they've started up on Patreon. They're helping us out with the Patreon account. You can find our we are doing an ongoing funding crowdfunding, crowdsourcing the funding, however that works, on Patreon, and we're just $1.50 away from hitting our first goal.
What was that?
$100 an episode.
$100 an episode.
Yeah, because that puts us basically in line with where we were at Joyride, and so the idea was, well, let's just get the ball rolling. And these are the people who pledged this week: Dan, Isabel, Needs Coffee, Jim.
Wait, does Isabel need coffee, or is that a separate person?
Needs Coffee is a separate person. Jim, William, Soren, Janine, Matthew, Nicole, and Steve all pledged this week, and I can't thank you enough.
Woohoo!
Especially William. William really he stepped in with a pretty big pledge.
It's a solid name.
Yeah. So thank you guys. We do appreciate it. We're really looking to refocus on the podcast and keep on building it and get out there more and so there's all of that. And we can't do it without your support.
Woohoo! Thanks, everybody.
So last week, without Dan, I didn't do emails. This week, I got emails all sorted out, but I didn't get to voicemails. All right. So we're just going to do emails, and then we'll pick up on voicemails next week, and maybe maybe that'll just be the pattern when Dan's not around. So this, Mark, this is a response to you being on the show.
Oh, God. This is it, huh?
This is the one that decides whether you get to come back next week.
Boy.
Hi, Frank and Dan. I just finished listening to the latest episode with guest host Mark, and I found his story so moving, and as he put it, such an incredible arc to his life story. I come from a happy home, was raised in a fairly non-strict Protestant family, am female and straight, so it's often hard for me to relate to stories of abuse, oppressive religion, the struggles of coming to terms with being gay, and the various pressures placed on young men, especially by religion. I'm also only 28, so thankfully I remember what it was like before the internet. But by the time I was questioning my faith in my teens, there were definitely resources available to me online. So as much as I can sympathize with stories about these types of issues, as I've said, it's sometimes hard to relate, and therefore they often don't create a major impact on me. That's why I'm so glad I listened to this episode and to Mark's story. I can't quite put my finger on what touched me, but his story and Frank's conversation with him really helped me understand and conceptualize that loneliness and fear that so many youth experience, and was a great perspective on a part of recent history that I haven't put much thought into.
Wow.
I, of course, understand how horrible situations can be, especially for LGBT youth, but I don't think I ever really understood the isolation part, which Mark described so well. My husband and I are expecting our first child early next year, a girl, and I find myself thinking...
It's going to be awkward to call her Mark. That's where this is going, right? But do it.
And I find myself thinking all the time now about the types of things I want to teach her. I really felt a great honesty from your conversation, including not sugarcoating bad things, but also finding ways to laugh about them and discuss them, which is the type of thing I want my daughter to learn. So please let Mark know that I really appreciate hearing his story, and thank him for me. So thank you.
Wow.
Isn't that great?
I'm a little moved by that. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Who was that?
Jillian.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I think that I love hearing other people's stories, and it gives us such great perspective and triangulation in life from kind of how to cope with when things aren't great. So I really appreciate that. I guess you appreciate it. So
yeah,
it wasn't a wasted episode, Frank. I told you.
All right. Well, this was this next email was bound to happen. We got something wrong. The word pareidolia, which I struggled with the pronunciation of. Thank you, Wendy, for correcting my pronunciation. Pareidolia is, I guess, how you're supposed to say it. So I looked up the word because we received a few emails saying that we were not, that it's not just about Jesus being spotted in brains. I think we were very specific about our use of pareidolia. It's a psychological phenomenon involving a stimulus, either an image or a sound, wherein the mind perceives a familiar pattern where none actually exists. So people will often see faces. This is the man in the moon phenomenon, and hidden messages in recorded music. That kind of stuff.
This is like seeing a face appear when you look at that mass on top of Ted Cruz's neck. Like your mind's just trying to make sense out of whatever that is.
Where no human face actually exists.
Well, I don't know what it is.
Yes, indeed.
It ain't Jesus.
All right. We had this. This was a lovely email sent to us by from Logan. Hi, guys. Just started listening to your show. Got over here from cognitive dissonance. This is the cognitive dissonance bump I was talking about. Your show is hilarious. I especially loved the My Husband's Not Gay episode, which is, we hear that all the time. That's such a
Which one was that? That's
the one when Andrea came on.
Yeah. Who I described as Dan's ex-wife.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, Logan says, I was listening to one of your episodes where you were discussing TSA screenings and how they generally aren't a big deal. I just wanted to point because we're talking about the scanners, and Dan and I were just like, come on, like these people are going to get used to seeing the patterns that are coming out. And yeah, okay, there might be a couple immature screeners or whatever, if they're seeing your junk, whatever.
Somebody saw Jesus in somebody's junk. They paradoled.
Yeah, and then it got spread all around the internet.
Right.
A picture of
how embarrassing
the funky junk downstairs. Anyway, again, Logan continues. I just wanted to point out something that wasn't covered and that many people don't have on their radar. These screenings are annoying but benign for most people. However, as a transgender person, I can tell you that for trans people, this can be extremely intrusive and worrisome. Not only are you often going through a scanner which shows your anatomy, which puts you at risk of harassment, being outed, or just general embarrassment, but you're often pat down or held up from completing security due to certain garments that many trans people need to wear, such as binders for trans men or gaffs for trans women, which can show up as suspicious on the scanner. Medications that one may need to be bringing, hormones or syringes, or photo ID discrepancy. There have been many cases of trans people being ridiculed, detained, groped, or otherwise harassed due to these screenings. For many transgender people, these screenings are not just an annoyance. For many, myself included, they are frightening and can be a serious problem. I've been stopped many times, as have many friends, and it has rarely been a pleasant experience. I'm sorry if this seems pedantic. It does not.
It does not.
It's just something I wanted to bring up, as I feel many listeners probably don't have this issue in mind because it isn't a part of their day-to-day lives. Certainly wasn't on my mind.
Do you know what's really funny? I almost did this as a story today.
Oh, really?
As an opening story, because I just read, thanks, Logan, and I just read some information online about a couple of trans women who had been singled out, and it's the gist of the stories I read. It wasn't just that, okay, there's something a little suspicious. There's something slightly out of the norm. I'm not going to use the word suspicious. But then it was, now that we know what it is, now that we know what's happening, we're going to humiliate this person because we can. Yeah. Because it's a cruel thing to do, and we can make we can embarrass this person and humiliate them. And that was kind of the gist of what I was getting from those stories.
It's just wretched. Wow.
Yeah, it's despicable, and I would say just this, and I'm not a trans person, so I'm treading carefully on this subject, but I constantly am amazed at, even though the world is cruel and people are many people are assholes, where we were 10 years ago with this subject, where we were 15 years ago, I'm amazed, and I'm sure that's small consolation to somebody who still has to suffer the bullshit of daily life. Right. In that situation, but it just seems like it's actually a conversation that we're having as a society. And other than the people who panic about bathrooms and pee-pees, it's just, it feels like there's momentum in a positive direction. Yeah. But stories like that remind you that there's still just a long way to go.
Yeah. There's still a ton of work to do.
Yeah. So we feel for you for sure. And sorry for that.
Yeah. And, it's something that we need to have in mind. We need to be aware of these issues, and our listeners should all be aware of these issues. Yeah. Because it's only through that, through the conversation, that we're all going to get good.
Get right with it. Yeah.
And hopefully when somebody sees something terrible happening, stand up for the person. Yeah.
And I think it's important to say that you and I both, as gay men, oddly, sometimes the community that can be the worst about trans issues is the gay community. And so, obviously Frank and I are incredibly enlightened people, and you're welcome for all of our wisdom, but, we have to call it like we see it, and sometimes gay guys are
kind of
dicks.
Yeah. No, it's true.
Yeah.
All right. These next two emails are actually a continuation of the tech issue that some people are having with Patreon. Some suggestions that have been made. I suggested clearing out your cache and cookies, which is some old advice that I learned from a brief stint working customer support at eBay. So my less than 2 months, I didn't get through the probationary period at all.
Really?
No, I hated it so bad. I quit. Like this one morning, I just like woke up and was like, I fucking hate this job so much.
Was it just a cubicle farm?
It was cubicle farm, and I was doing live support, so it was just typing, right? In little chat boxes would pop up.
Oh yeah,
and we were supposed to run like 5 of them at a time, right? And it was just incomprehensible. Like there was this woman, you know, I don't want to say this in a way that's going to get me in trouble, but there's always this one woman, right, who can just handle so many fucking emails, and who can just like, and it's because she's brilliant. Somehow her mind just wraps around it, and she's so capable.
She's in the Matrix.
But everybody gets compared to her crazy abilities.
The overachiever.
Yeah, she would have like 20 chats up and just be like, just mile a minute. And so they're like, can you go sit next to Lisa or whatever her name was
and learn? Because I was like incapable of doing more than like 4 chats at a time, right? Dude, that's just like brain wiring. You're not going to learn that, right?
Right.
She was the Da Vinci of live chats.
And I seem to recall that we would always say, whenever anybody was having problems with the website, well, have you cleared out your cache and cookies?
And that would buy you like 10 seconds.
Yeah, exactly. But this Michael is actually suggesting opening up a private browsing tab or incognito tab, right? So like in Safari or Chrome, you can open up these tabs that they shut off. When you do that, it shuts off common browser plugins that sometimes break the proper rendering of a website. I don't know what that means, Michael, but I do know what a private tab is, and I bet a lot of our listeners do. So I think that's good advice. Try it if you're still having problems with Patreon. And the other one is use Chrome or Firefox. This is according to Zachary. I'm assuming the problem, because it could not be replicated by the support team, is that the user lacks proper root SSL certificate authorities. I can read the words. I have no clue what it means. Chrome or Firefox will probably have the proper root CAs installed. It would help a lot if you could describe the error they are getting. Okay. What? Sorry, I got lost in there.
I fell asleep for a minute. What's happening?
Anyway, he suggests use Chrome or Firefox, and then I don't understand what all this SSL crap
I'd say clear your cache and cookies.
Clear your cache and cookies, or open up a private browser. That's our best advice, I think, at this point. Sorry, Zachary, it got too technical for me. Well, okay, Mark, I guess it's time to move on.
Yeah,
get to the Halloween treat.
Yes,
so we teased at the beginning of the show.
It's October. It is the season of the witch, and a story very much of both local interest and to us here in Salt Lake City, and I think of interest to people all over the world, because the situation in question has a very pernicious global effect.
Right.
Is this conference that is coming to town in October, in the end of October, which will be here the 27th, 28th, and 29th.
Okay.
It's crazy to me that they're not extending through Halloween so they can have a little human sacrifice and a witch's ball. This thing called the World Conference of Families. And I have a little fact sheet about them that gives some brief information, and then we can kind of drill down a bit more, if we like, into different areas of their mendacity. So, the World Conference of Families was started in 1997 by kind of an evangelical guy in Illinois. It is listed as a hate group by the Southern Poverty Law Center and the Human Rights Campaign, and they both provide voluminous citation backing up their claims of this group as a hate group. The World Conference of Families loudly and energetically support vicious, violent, factless, and anti-scientific, anti-gay laws in Russia, Eastern Europe, across Africa, and beyond. Wow. They are 100% opposed to any and all control a woman may want to have over her reproductive cycle. I mean, 100% opposed.
So no birth control, no.
They are 100% opposed to abortion in any and all cases. They oppose sex ed and support a total ban on birth control of any kind.
No condoms.
No condoms. No. Nothing.
Wow.
They have a pathological belief that humanity is going extinct.
Yeah, we're Well, we're just suffering.
They insist all people, even in overpopulated third world countries, must make as many babies as possible.
What?
Yeah. In August 2014, the conference, the same conference they're holding in Salt Lake, they were meaning to have their conference in Melbourne, Australia.
Oh.
And the Australian Senate almost unanimously condemned them.
Wow.
And they were kicked out. The good people of Australia came together and said, no way. They were kicked out of 4 different venues. Their conference was thrown into total disarray. And even the hard right of Australian politics, which is probably like, wear some sunscreen. The far right even backed out of the conference.
What?
Yeah. So they're not loved, and they're a bunch of stinkers. To make matters worse, they're coming to our very nice town.
So they're coming here instead of...
No, that was 2014.
Oh, that was 2014.
Or was that 2014? That was 2014.
So they had to just outright cancel that one.
No, I think they kind of met where they should, kind of, under the pier pilings and behind the rocks,
right,
where reptiles dwell. But they also, this is really interesting. They also, I think I'm wrong. I think it was 2013 they went to Australia. 2014 was supposed to be in Moscow. And so they do a lot of work in Russia.
Okay.
The World Conference of Families, and we can talk about it. And it's hideous what they're doing in Russia. So most of our listeners will know about these odious laws the Russians under Putin have passed.
Yeah, the stuff about, like, you can't basically proselytize homophobic or
right.
The homosexual lifestyle, or right. You can't talk about homosexuality around kids.
It is so broadly written, that bill, that literally, if a teacher, I'm saying literally like that dope preacher, that if in reality, if a young person asks a teacher, are there gay people? And the teacher says yes, they're guilty.
Oh, my God.
They can be prosecuted severely for that. There's nothing quite as wonderful as a Russian prison.
Gulag.
Exactly. Off you go. So they were supposed to meet in Moscow. And this was right after the Crimean crisis. This is after the Olympics. Everybody's like, oh, Putin's kind of wonderful. And then they put out the torch, and then they drove into the Crimea. So the World Conference of Families actually responded to the heat that people were giving them and saying, you can't go spend money in Russia when this is going on.
Okay.
Well, they claimed that it was because it's dangerous. It was a little dangerous to travel there, and it's a little uncertain right now, which I think is pretty rich broth coming from an organization that has tried to make life in Russia so appalling and unlivable for a substantial group of people. So for them to be like, oh, it's too dangerous for us. Fuck you. It's so awful. So, so they're coming to Salt Lake City.
Yay.
Yeah. And there has been some outcry. They're on people's radar.
Well, they do have a local connection, don't they?
They do.
Don't they do some work down at BYU?
They do some work down at BYU, and and the sponsoring organization here in Salt Lake is this thing called the Sutherland Institute.
Oh, they're involved?
Yeah.
Of course they're involved.
Of course they're involved. So just think of every bad idea from the Middle Ages, and the Sutherland Institute is all about that.
Paul Miro, is he still involved?
No, it's not Paul Miro. It's these father and son team called the Swims.
The Swims?
Yeah.
Oh, good people, the Swims.
The Swims. So, so they're coming to our fair city, which is bad enough. And for those of you who haven't been to Salt Lake, it's a very nice place, and the people here are very nice, generally. So now we have this cancer descending on our town. It's bad enough, but our governor, our elected, well, he was first, John Huntsman left, so he got kind of stepped in. Anyway, so our governor, Gary Herbert, he has 2 first names, is not the sharpest tool in the shed. But he is speaking at their opening event.
Oh, dear. No, he's not.
Yeah. He's speaking at their opening event on the morning of October 27th. Followed that same... Well, then his wife is speaking, because it's a family affair. And then Mormon apostle M. Russell Ballard is speaking right after that.
No way.
Yeah. So the official church has been desperately doing what I call pink washing for the past couple of years after they got busted funding Prop 8 through a bunch of front groups.
Right.
They've been busted for that, and so now they're like, oh, we don't hate the gay people that much. So, with the help of a lot of local activists, the Mormons actually got on board and passed a pretty amazing non-discrimination ordinance in Utah.
Yeah.
You can no longer be thrown out of your housing for being gay, lesbian, transgender. You can't be fired for that. Whereas before that was totally kosher.
Right.
So they, on one hand, they're doing stuff like that. They're saying, okay, we're going to try to lurch imperfectly towards the 21st century, and kudos for doing that.
Yeah, but I mean, every story I've read on that topic of sort of they've supported these laws that shore up rights for the gay, lesbian, and transgender community. There's always this little boilerplate, line about how they stay. Their stance on marriage has remained the same.
Right.
So it's kind of like the Pope, right?
Yeah, they want to have it both ways.
Exactly.
They don't want to have any more PR embarrassments because they've had huge PR embarrassments.
Exactly.
But at the same time, they're just, we still want to be retrograde 19th century, scolds,
right?
And try to use the law and the legislature to make everybody who's not a member of our club behave like they're a member of our club.
Right.
So they're trying to have it both ways. And this is, I think, this is a lurch away from the 21st century by having this guy who's an apostle. And for those of you who don't know, that's pretty high ranking.
Yeah, I mean, he's on the board of directors.
He's on the board of directors. It's these days one of the most dangerous jobs in the world you can have as an apostle because they're dropping like flies. But it's a pretty serious thing for him to be appearing at this horrible conference. Yeah. Now, also Apostle Dallin Oaks, who is not known as, if he was a party clown, you wouldn't have him do your kid's party because he's spooky. So Dallin Oaks is on their board. He's on the permanent board of directors for the World Congress of Families.
So they're tightly tied. They've got good ties with the Mormon Church.
So good.
Neat and tidy.
So good. In fact, I printed out the schedule of events, and let me tell you, over 3 days, busybodies keep busy. There are so many speakers you can't even believe. And this thing is like, it's like the Trump family Bible. That's the schedule.
This is the schedule.
And you're saying that, BYU, I think you said BYU's involved. I got a repetitive motion injury from highlighting all the BYU professors that are involved in this thing.
Jesus Christ.
So if you have the bad luck, listeners, to go to BYU, you can take those 3 days off school because nobody in the faculty is going to be there. They're all going to be at this thing.
Right.
For the torchlight rallies and whatnot.
Right.
But our governor's speaking, those two, that one apostle speaking.
That lovely Gail Ruzicka is going to be there.
Local Shrike, Gail Ruzicka will be there.
Yeah.
Brian Brown from the National Organization of Marriage, who is as major a silent film villain as you could ever hiss at, is going to be there. So basically, if you take every terrible idea the Christian right has ever had, boil it down to a little mass, and then centrifuge that at high speed for 2 millennium,
right?
That little chunk of concentrated evil is what you're left with. And it's this thing,
the World Conference of Families. I mean, they hold such wonderful events as the Festival of Families. Doesn't that sound nice?
It does sound nice.
The Festival of Lights comes to festival. You go and you just look at families, or the little booths of various different kinds of families from around the world.
Actually, what it is
on display.
Is they come and look at your family and then judge you based on that. So, I mean, just a couple things. And if you think I'm exaggerating, just let me read a couple things, if that's all right, Frank.
Okay.
Let's see. a few years ago, they were supposed to, the World Conference of Families board, they're all Americans. So this is an international organization, right?
Okay.
And they're doing, because the Enlightenment has caught up to America. And it has. And, you know, it is, despite our many flaws, we are a post-Enlightenment country, and we're fairly liberal, and we keep moving in that direction imperfectly.
Right. So
their shit isn't getting any traction in this country, any real traction in this country anymore. Right. So they've decided to export it. So they go to post-colonial countries. They go to you know, a kleptocratic mess like post-Soviet Russia,
right,
where Putin is like down with it. If you guys have a way to control people, let's talk about it.
Right.
So here's just, you know, they were meeting on Capitol Hill, and they're all Americans, and they're all, you know, everyone on their board is an American. And Senator Mark Kirk was supposed to provide them with a room for a press conference on Capitol Hill, and he learned kind of how hideous they were after that, and he canceled it. So John Boehner provided them with a room at the last minute.
Oh, that's nice of him.
So, champion of the family and not crazy person, Alan Carlson, the founder of this little tea party, compared the criticism of his work and not getting the conference room they wanted to the fascism of the 20s and the 30s, and then proceeded to heap praise on Russia and Vladimir Putin for their anti-gay crackdown. So, their spokesman is a real peach named Don Feder,
okay,
who is a lying, hysterical, crazy person. And here's a column he wrote in his official capacity for these people. Just an excerpt. Where will the human WMD in the White House do the most damage? The economy or national security? Since Obama became president, 27 million jobs bit the dust. Labor force participation rate is the lowest in 36 years. Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. The National Council of La Raza's favorite gringo doesn't know or care how many thousands of dreamers streaming across our borders each month have communicable diseases or are criminals or terrorists traveling incognito.
Oh, my God.
He's given up even the pretense of trying to control the border. It's all the Congress's fault anyway for not passing comprehensive amnesty, which will work as well as keeping out illegals as dousing a fire with gasoline. Okay, so if you love if you claim to love the traditional family, I don't know what constituency in this country is more about that than Mexican Americans.
Right.
Right. So, you know, hates immigrants. Let's see what else. They use as the cornerstone of their anti-gay research this guy named Mark Regners.
Okay.
And I think you've probably heard about him in the past. Somehow has a job at the University of Texas, and you know isn't picking poop out of his toes on the edge of a village somewhere. And Texas has a lot of places where he could do that. The Regnerus study is used. It's been used by every anti-gay group in the country, and it's. He says he studied 3,000 people who were raised by same-sex parents.
Right. Okay. This guy. Okay.
Well, he didn't. He interviewed 2 people who were raised by same-sex parents, and from that concluded that
50% are one way and 50%.
You concluded that 100% of the time it's bad to be raised by same-sex parents.
Wow.
His research has been laughed out of every court in the land since the slog of the federal courts up to the Supreme Court, including the Supreme Court. He was laughed out of court in all these places. Wow. With the help of the World Congress of Families, his research was the cornerstone of passing a law in Russia that with this he interviewed 3,000 people raised by same-sex families. This law is different from the other ones. It allows the government to snatch the biological children from their biological parents, if they're suspected of being gay.
Snatch the child.
To take the child out of their natural biological parents' house.
The child they think the child is gay.
No, or because the parent is suspected of being gay.
Wow.
So they're fully behind that law in Russia.
These are horrible, horrible people.
Here's their press release about Uganda.
Okay.
Okay, so they're very, very active in Africa, especially Nigeria and Uganda. And this from them is a glowing press release. Uganda will not bow to foreign pressure to legalize homosexuality. According to Nzaba Buturo, Minister of State for Ethics and Integrity, Uganda will continue to resist pressure from the United Nations and foreign governments to legalize homosexuality. Uganda will not be forced to legalize practices that are illegal, unnatural, and abnormal, Buturo told journalists. In a message to Uganda's representative to the United Nations, the minister stated, they, the UN and foreign governments, have no right to call us names, to call us extremists. Yeah, you can tell people what they can say and can't say. Have no right to call us names, to call us extremists. Buturo said his government would communicate with nations that share its perspective on homosexual relations. Uganda is considering a comprehensive law which would make it a criminal offense to promote homosexuality, especially among youth. Uganda's stand against homosexuality has been condemned by international groups seeking to advance the homosexual agenda. And they're very happy about this.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And what the law in
I love how the article is like all about, we're going to stand up to international pressure, blah 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 blah. But isn't it international influence that's like,
who the fuck are these guys?
In the form of Americans come walking in saying, "Hey, you should still keep hating the gays." I mean, they're just playing to cultural, fears and stereotypes and blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
And these foreigners are okay,
right?
And they'll shower money on us and give us resources to continue spreading hate.
Yeah.
But those foreigners,
right,
who oppose that, they don't have any right.
It's amazing.
There should be no international influence here. And it's like, come get off, get it.
I know. It's and again, it's because these kind of fascistic types cannot get enough traction in the United States. They're doing damage in the United States. Let's not lie to ourselves.
Right.
They're causing harm and they're making life objectively worse.
Right.
Especially for gay people and LGBT people in more rural areas and more conservative states.
But in Uganda, they can go and they have just the right fuel for the fire.
Totally.
And so be it.
Yeah. And if they can make it work, I don't know what the thinking is. Like, if we can make people suffer over there, maybe it'll catch fire and happen over here.
Well, yeah, maybe you turn the tide internationally. Is that maybe what they think they're doing? Like, get enough places in the world where gays are hated, and then it doesn't seem like such an extreme thing to hate gays back home.
I think, yeah.
But when the two countries that are signing up are Russia and Uganda, nothing against either of those places, I guess. Although I feel just fine having things against Russia, but. That's more probably cultural than anything. I mean, it's not like they're getting great places. Get Sweden to join up, folks, and then that's a real feather in your cap. Get France to all of a sudden be like, oh yeah, gays are awful.
Exactly. And they do have traction in France, actually.
They do,
because there's this in a lot of Europe, there's this rise of the right that's based on kind of a lot of panic about immigration and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So the Le Pen's party in France and I can't remember the National Front are very good friends with the World Congress of Families, and it is generally very, very anti-Semitic. Obviously very anti-women, very anti-gay. But you're right. What we were saying just a second ago, this idea that what is more colonial than these, white fathers showing up, lecturing you on morality,
right,
and saying this is what the Bible says, this is what you must do. I mean, it's galling.
Yeah.
And what they're openly supporting in Uganda is murder. I mean, it is. You can't talk. Same in Russia. You can't talk about homosexuality. Groups of homosexuals can't meet. Whatever they deem those homosexual to mean, they can't meet. They can't talk about it in school. You can't talk. So basically, this is a all-American group that is demanding an absolute ban on free speech, free association.
Yeah.
And they're criminalized. The Christian right's always screaming about thought crime.
Right.
Anti-bullying is thought crime. Anti-bullying legislation. Well, homosexuality is it's an innate state of being.
Right.
How do you criminalize that?
Right.
And that's what these guys are all about. So they're not just another group of, Christians meeting. We had the Episcopal conference here earlier this year, right? And
yeah, they were delightful.
Yeah, totally delightful. And then their purple shirts and they didn't shame anybody or.
For the most part, harmless.
For the most part, harmless.
For the most part, harmless. On these kind of issues, they're harmless. Wow, yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not sure what to say about it, except, anybody who maybe has an advocacy kind of bent, at least a call to the governor's office, who's still listed as a speaker.
Yeah, that
on the first day.
Yeah, it's not a bad idea.
Yeah, and then
maybe start Facebooking about it, and someone needs to start.
October 27th, 28th, and 29th, and something tells me that we're not going to have a hard time spotting these folks around town.
Well, it would be really a lot of fun to do is if you could find like a really prominent, side of a building or whatever, and just put up a nice, big banner,
Yeah.
Salt Lake City welcomes hateful Christians, or whatever.
It's pretty terrible and it's pretty sad. And I always like to, when I'm having conversations about atheism or the Christian right or whatever with people, to say, look, everybody's entitled to their opinion and their ideas, but every opinion and every idea are not equal.
Yeah.
If you and I, Frank, and our listeners, I imagine mostly, got our way legislatively in the world, what would be the difference an evangelical Christian would notice?
Well, legally, or
if equality
in their life, and their ability to go about their life, and go to church, and all that, they still get to do all those things.
They wouldn't even notice.
Still get to be hateful.
They wouldn't even notice.
Yeah.
Now, what if they all got their way? What would our lives be like?
It would be hell.
It would be hell. It would be hell for every woman, every gay person. It would be hell for every racial minority in this country. Yeah. So it's not equal. So
they're not analogous.
They're wrong.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Mark, for filling us in on this. I also want to just kind of comment on the mass preparation that Mark showed up with. I mean, at one point it was just piles of printouts just from one side of the table to the next.
I took out a forest for these people.
You easily went through a packet of highlighters.
Yeah. And honestly, that's just scratching the surface.
Yeah, that's horrible.
And we mostly focused on the gay stuff. When you start getting into their stances on feminism and birth control and abortion and everything they believe is based on fallacious science and ideas.
Right.
That abortion causes breast cancer, that abortion causes infertility, that abortion causes suicide.
Right.
That just on and on and on. The contraception somehow increases STDs.
Right. Well, they don't need good science. They've got the truth. Right. They've got God. So they just need some mildly corroborating stories.
Yeah.
From out in the field. And
it would be weird for us just to think about, as people who are right about everything, to try being wrong about everything for a minute. That must be weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't even imagine.
So if anybody from the World Congress of Families is listening, please stay home.
We don't want you here.
Fall is so nice in Salt Lake.
Yeah. It's not often that I want to roll up the welcome mat for people visiting Salt Lake.
No, very seldom.
Yeah. This one, I think it would be fitting. I don't know how you could possibly, rally enough people. That is one thing about Salt Lake. We're also used to being surrounded by the bullshit, the nonsense.
Right.
Even though we have this nice little blue dot, in the middle of the whole thing, I think we just get really it's hard to rally us.
Yeah,
because we know the legislature sucks, and we know there's okay, show up and vote. I guess I will.
Yeah. But people like us are so surrounded by like-minded people.
Yeah.
And I guess it causes some complacency that we should probably get over our shit and
I think this would be a good moment for some people to get together and at least stand outside with some signs and just be like, you guys suck.
Not me and Frank, because that sounds hard. And it could be brisk the end of October. It might be sweater weather, and your hands could get cold. Yeah. But you guys do it.
Well, all right. Well, if you would like to maybe spearhead this whole thing for us, or would like to tell us why we're completely wrong about everything, except this one. This one, Mark is not wrong about this.
I think we're pretty much right on this one.
Yeah, but if you'd like to respond to anything that you've heard today on the show, please do. You can email us at podcast@thankgodimatheist.com, or you can leave us a voicemail message. We love to play them when Dan's around, so he can take half the work of all that. The telephone number is 424-666-8442. It's also nice to visit the Facebook page, facebook.com/TGIAtheist. You can like us there. We got a lot of likes. And then, you get all of Mackenzie's wonderful posts in your news feed. Just like that. You just like it, and that starts happening. And then, of course, also there is the TGIA Members Only Lounge on Facebook. You search for it on Facebook. No, if you search for it on Google, you won't find it. But search for it there and request to join. And in a day or two, maybe 3, Dan will have you vetted and let you in. And then it's just amazing. Yeah, and it's just like this vibrant community of like-minded people. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you to Mackenzie for all of her work on Facebook, and thanks to the Red Rock Hot Club for letting us use their music, and thanks to Mark.
Thank you. Can I give a shout-out real quick?
Oh, sure, yeah.
To my sweet man, my Jesse, on his 40th birthday today. Love you, babe. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Jesse.
Woohoo.
Yeah, and thank you, Mark, for sitting in. We'll have one more week with Mark, and then Dan will be back.
We'll see.
And we're just going to grab all the equipment.
I've gotten comfortable in this palatial place.
All right. Well, thank you, dear listener, for listening.
Bye.